show.
Welcome to episode 91 of the Gluttons For Punishment Podcast, or GFP, a Toronto Maple Leafs and NHL podcast hosted by Michael Lepore and Anthony Bruno. Thank you so much for listening and watching us on YouTube as well. As of February 2nd, 2023, the Toronto Maple Leafs head into the All-Star break, sitting second place in the Atlantic Division, playing at a 110-point pace. They just lost 5-2 to the Boston Bruins. Leafs Nation, not very happy about that, to say the least.
Wow.
But we are going to give you our thoughts and opinions on everything that has gone down with the Leafs. Since our last show, they've gone 2-2-0 since episode 90 of the GFP podcast. We're also going to talk about if anyone could beat the Boston Bruins in a 7-game playoff series. And then we are also going to give you our take on Brad Marchand's comments towards the Toronto Maple Leafs, and even about his Boston Bruins teammates taking less money to win. What the heck was up with that? But we are going to get into all that. But before we do, it is time to officially welcome in my partner in crime, Mr. Michael Lepore. How you doing, man?
Anthony Bruno, as always, very happy to be here recording a pod, heading into the All-Star break. So a few more nights without anxiety, watching my beloved Toronto Maple Leafs. Episode 91 of the Gluttons For Punishment podcast. This one is too easy, and it was written in the stars as he played his 1,000th game this past week. John Tavares, our captain of the Toronto Maple Leafs, who I've always loved because he chose to play in Toronto. People always say, who's your favorite Leaf and why? People talk about Matthews and Marner, and that's fine. Those are okay answers, but they were drafted into Toronto. John Tavares pretty well could have played anywhere, and he chose to go home to wear the blue and white. As I was thinking about Tavares and his 1,000th game, I look back at the post-Stanley Cup captains of the Toronto Maple Leafs. You had Sittler, Vive. Let's see if I can do this. Sittler, Vive, Rob Ramage, Wendell Clark, Doug Gilmour, Matt Sundin, Dion Phaneuf, and then John Tavares. Where would JT rank among those captains in your eyes, Anthony Bruno?
Wow. I would definitely put him just based on his talent and his accomplishments up to this point. I know he hasn't won a Stanley Cup. I know he's only won one playoff series, but based on point production, goals, he's almost at 500 goals. Everything that this guy's done since the moment he entered the league, he's easily in the top three, I would say. You have Sundin. I mean, okay, Sundin and Sittler, I guess we put them 1-2. And then you have Gilmour. God, maybe he's fourth.
See, it's hard, eh?
It's hard.
And specific to the contribution to the Leafs, like you mentioned, he's won one playoff round, and that one was with the Islanders, the 500 goals. He'll probably get to 500 goals, but not all of them with Toronto. But in terms of contributions with the Leafs, I mean, to me, I think you have to put Sundin one because of the playoff runs and how far they went. But I guess, too, Gilmour and Clark went to the conference finals twice. Well, nothing to put your nose up there. But at the same time, it's a weird thing with Gilmour and Clark. They weren't with the Leafs for that long, especially Gilmour. It feels like people think Gilmour was a 15-year Leaf. No, he's there for, I think, 5 or 6 seasons.
Yeah, and at least Gilmour has the point production to back it up, whereas Wendell Clark was not in the same league in terms of his ability to score and put up points like these other captains. So that's why I think Tavares is definitely ahead of Wendell Clark, and people will probably yell at me for that because Wendell Clark is a legend. But I got to drop down Wendell a little bit because his numbers just don't jump off the page like some of these other guys.
Yeah, and Gilmour's got the Selke, and even just to make it black and white, Sittler, Hall of Famer, Gilmour, Hall of Famer, Sundin, Hall of Famer, Clark's not a Hall of Famer. Right?
And there you go.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, man. Yeah, I love that. Shout out to JT, one of the few big name players in hockey who wasn't afraid to make a splash and leave the team that he was with for so long to go to a team that he thought was going to win the Stanley Cup. And they're still working on that. But shout out to JT for having the courage to do something that not many players in the NHL are willing to do.
That's right.
All right, man. Let's get straight into this podcast here. So since we last recorded, the Leafs have played 4 games, and that included a 3-2 overtime win over the New York Rangers, a brutal 6-2 loss to the Ottawa Senators, a bounce-back 5-1 win over the Capitals, and then a 5-2 loss to the Boston Bruins. As I mentioned, heading into the All-Star break, still in second place in the division, playing at a 110-point pace. Although the Lightning are ahead of the Leafs in points percentage, but points-wise, they're still below the Leafs. So, Lepore, give me your take on what we've seen from the Leafs over the last few games. You can touch on any game you want. It wasn't the best way to head into the All-Star break, but wasn't horrible either.
Okay, so just quickly running over. So the Rangers game, I actually thought that the Leafs didn't play that well, or where I expect them to play. And they were able to come back and get a win. Marner with that amazing overtime goal to put the cherry on top. So everyone's happy. Okay, everyone's happy. Moving on to the Ottawa Senators game. Bruno, I don't do this too often on the podcast, but Michael Lepore is going to get personal here. Okay.
I love it.
Some emotions are going to come out. So as the listeners know, or most of the listeners know, I'm sure, I am from Ottawa. Okay. I'm a Toronto Maple Leafs fan living in Ottawa. Naturally, many of my friends are fans of the Ottawa Senators. And I have many friends who are also fans of the Montreal Canadiens based on geography and when the Sens came, when the Sens came. So I have a chat group with a big number of my friends, some Canadiens fans, some Senators fans, and many members of this group got on a train and went to Toronto to see the Ottawa Senators play my beloved Maple Leafs. I was invited, but I did not go because something I haven't said on the show, I have a wife who's 9 months pregnant. And as much as I love my Leafs, and as much as she knows I love my Leafs, I don't think I would have got the A-OK to take a train to Toronto to watch the Buds with her ready to pop.
Okay? And that was a great decision, Lepore.
Oh, fantastic. Fantastic. So, like I said, I got these friends in this chat group. They all head down to Toronto to watch this game. Most of the guys, naturally, who went are Ottawa Senators fans. What do you think the dialogue was in that chat group as this game was going on into the night and into the next day? I had to withstand like 24 to 48 hours of getting absolutely fucking destroyed by my group of friends, Sens fans, who, God bless them, fandom, man. They got on a train. They paid big money. They paid like $250 to sit in the nosebleeds. I mean, hashtag Toronto. So God bless them for showing their fandom. And in a way, I was happy for them. These guys went. They had a good time.
It's like their Stanley Cup.
Oh, they got to beat up on the Leafs. Good for them, right? You go for a good meal after. Good for them. It's A+. But talking about that performance, and I know I'm a little fired up because of what I had to deal with personally here, it goes back to what I said a few weeks ago on this show when I said where the Toronto Maple Leafs stand right now, they are a pretender. And people will point to that game and say they were 7-2-1 in their last 10. They had won, I think it was 6 in a row at home. Sammy had not lost at home. There was a weird situation with Murray, and we'll get to that. The Leafs have beaten the Sens 4 times in a row. So a lot was pointing to a poor performance or a Sens win. Oh, and they put on the black jerseys. So another reason
the
to
Bieber
think
jerseys.
Yeah, things aren't going to go well. Not that they've played it poorly in those jerseys, but people know what I mean. Just add some weirdness to it. But I don't care. I don't care. That was a pathetic performance. That was an absolutely pathetic performance. The Ottawa Senators are one of the worst 5-on-5 teams in the National Hockey League. I think they put up 5 even-strength goals on the Leafs. Terrible. Absolutely terrible.
Yeah, Lepore, heading into that Leaf game, I believe the Senators had a minus 35 goal differential at 5-on-5. Just
amazing.
Horrific.
And just shit kicked us up and down the ice. And again, like I said, people are going to point to excuses, but I don't care because of the standard I hold for this team and the expectations I have on this team. And I will die on this hill until the trade deadline. As it stands right now, this team is a pretender. Their forward depth from a scoring perspective is not good enough, and their D is not good enough. And I'm tired of hearing people say, oh, look at their goals against. And no. We're not talking about
so being a shot at me, Lepore.
Come up. No. I'm saying no. I compliment their goals against and their defensive play, but I'm saying the take that they don't have to add at the deadline defensively. We're not talking about being a good team. We're talking about being the best team. To win the Stanley Cup, you have to be too good. You need areas of the ice that You have depth to the point where it doesn't even make sense. You have too many guys. You can't tell me a D, they're there. And again, the goal is not to be good. The goal is not to win a round as much as people would like to think it is. The goal is to win the whole fucking thing. And right now, that D is not good enough. And that Sens team, we can say whatever we want about them. They're playing well lately. They got a lot of firepower. They fucking humiliated us. That was embarrassing how bad the Leafs look, how bad our D looked. Our transition game was terrible. Awful. So I really hope that game served as a slap in the face to management. I'm sure they were already motivated that they had to make a deal, but now it's like, we really have to make a deal. Like, enough is enough now. Like, we're not even thinking about this anymore, because a performance like that, as much as I hate to say it, shows me who you really are. Does.
Yeah, it wasn't the best way to head into the All-Star break, because before we even get to the Bruins game, they lost 5-2. They did not play well. And not that they didn't, not that they played terribly against Boston, but they got outplayed by the Bruins.
Yeah. The game was closer than the score. It was one of those.
Exactly. But man, that Senators game, you nailed it. Like, they were awful in that game. And I know it was the whole situation with like Samsonov getting thrust into the starting role because Murray had that ankle injury, and I don't know.
I'm doing quotations, Bruno, for those listening.
Yeah, fair enough. And, Austin Matthews has been out for the last 3 games. The best player on the team, the number 1 center. His 20-plus minutes a game have to be replaced. That's a little bit difficult to deal with, but, you still expect to beat a team like Ottawa, who's been awful at 5-on-5 this season, that has no chance of making the playoffs. And they lost 6-2 and got their doors kicked off at even strength. So it made no sense, but you said it, man. It's a wake-up call. And I'm not willing to say that they're a pretender. I'm not going to be as harsh as you, although I think there's a lot of people that probably agree with you. But man, oh man, they got to do something at the trade deadline. And I would love to see them get a top 6 forward to add to the scoring depth, because as great as their top 4 are, Matthews, Marner, Tavares, and Nylander, if they can add a little bit more punch in that top 6, move Calle Yarncroke down to the 3rd line.
Exactly.
And add another top 6 winger. That would be so helpful to this
team. It's a different team.
Completely different team. And then also, if they can even add to the blue line, because you said it, man. And listen, I will defend the blue line to a certain degree because it has been in flux throughout the season. There's been so many injuries. TJ Brody just came back after missing a chunk of games. Morgan Riley obviously missed a big chunk of the season. Liljegren at the start of the season was out. So the entire year, the defense core has been in flux. And I know, Lepore, you just made fun of all the people who talk about the goals against and, even the expected goals against per 60 minutes and all of that. Like, those numbers are still pretty good. They're all in the top 10.
I'm okay with that. And again, I compliment their defensive play. I'm just saying, you look at this group to think this group is good enough to win the Stanley Cup. I'm okay with complimenting them, and a high five to Keith for how he's changed the structure of this team. My point is just that. Can this group win the Stanley Cup? And I think most people would say no. That's not going to happen.
And that's fair. That's totally fair. It is hard to disagree with you, because obviously this team hasn't won a playoff series in 18 years.
Yeah.
And seeing the defensive breakdowns that still continue to happen, it is concerning. And really, there is no concrete evidence to point to say that this defense core can get the Leafs to a Stanley Cup. Because as good as the numbers are, and I list them every week on the show, I could even list them again for you guys right now. Right now, the Leafs are 7th in goals against per game. They are 7th in 5-on-5 expected goals against per 60 minutes. They've actually dipped to 11th in 5-on-5 save percentage. So the goaltending has been shaky recently. Ilya Samsonov, who has now started 7 games in a row, has a .908 save percentage over those 7 games. So the goaltending and defense has slipped a little bit, but overall the numbers are good. But still, there is no concrete evidence that this defense core can get through 4 rounds of the playoffs. And I think everyone in Leafs Nation would be happy if they added a top 6 forward and a defenseman at the deadline. Now, in terms of who those players are, whether it's Timo Meier, whether it's Ryan O'Reilly, whether it's some defenseman out there, I don't know who the hell that player is going to be or who those players are going to be. But I think this team definitely has to go into the All-Star break, regroup, and think about, okay, what moves can we make to not only better compete with Boston and Tampa, but to get us through 4 rounds of the Stanley Cup playoffs.
100%, man. 100%. It's not good enough.
It's time for a quick break because we have some breaking news. Manscaped is now selling beard products. That's right. They've gone from waist to face to help you replace that bulky razor with their brand new Beard Hedger Pro Kit. Manscaped helped you get the golden rod of a Greek god, and now they've created the best tools for you to turn heads with a clean, perfectly groomed, and conditioned beard. Finally, tame your mane by going to manscaped.com and using our exclusive promo code GFP20 for 20% off plus free shipping. Lepore, just when you think Manscaped has done it all, now they come out with beard products. This company never misses the mark.
That's right, Anthony Bruno. Manscaped has crushed it with the Lawnmower 4.0. And I really think what they're doing here is they're looking out for their clientele, because I know a lot of you are fucking gross and you've used that Lawnmower 4.0 on your face, which is not cool. So keep going with it. Follow Manscaped, get the beard trimmer, go to the Manscaped website, GFP20 for 20% off and free shipping.
You said it, man. Manscaped knows exactly what's going on. They don't want people using the Lawnmower 4.0 in places they should not be using it. So do the right thing. Go to manscaped.com for 20% off and free shipping using our code GFP20 to grab the Beard Hedger Pro Kit. That's 20% off and free shipping at manscaped.com using the promo code GFP20. Let's move on to this Bruins game.
Oh, yeah. We're going to skip on Murray. We'll save that one.
Let's talk about Murray. Screw it.
Well,
let's talk about Matt Murray.
What's to say, really? I mean, I'm to the point with this where we can debate what is actually wrong with him, whether it's mental, whether it's physical, but I don't care. And that may sound insensitive. I have no idea what people are going through, and injuries suck, and like mental problems really suck when I'm talking about mental health. But as a fan here, I don't care. So because the results, I'm not seeing anything on the ice, and a situation like that happened to Sammy, I'm not going to guess as to what happened, but I don't want to say he's letting the team down, but in terms of his availability, he's letting the team down. So I want to say I want him gone. I don't know if that's possible, but I'm just sick of hearing about it. I think it's that. Oh, he's going to play. He's not going to play. He played well. He played poorly. I hate to have to sit here as a Leafs fan and constantly defend someone regardless of their position. So as a goalie, it's even worse. Like, I'm annoyed. Like, just, can we end this somehow? Like, go on LTIR if you really are that hurt, or let's work something out to get you the fuck out of Toronto. I'm bothered by it just as a fan. And I hope the guy is physically healthy and mentally healthy, but in terms of his appearances and what he's been able to provide for the team, he's been a disappointment. And as a fan, that's all I can care about. So
availability is a skill. And
yeah,
I don't think anyone could disagree with that. You look at any sport, your ability to stay healthy and in the lineup and to be there for your teammates on a night-to-night basis is a skill. And I know some people don't have the same genetic makeup as others, and maybe their bodies just break down a little more easily. That I understand. I'm not a doctor. I can't determine, the genetic makeup of any of these players, and I'm sure a lot of doctors can't really do that either. But Matt Murray strikes me as a guy that just cannot stay healthy. His body breaks down. We've now seen this year after year, and the Leafs, I think, knew that when they traded for him. It's not like this is a surprise. They knew that they were betting on a guy that cannot stay healthy, and now we're seeing the same thing. Now, looking at his overall numbers, like, he hasn't been horrible this year. 19 games, 911 save percentage, 273 goals against. He hasn't played since January 17th, and in his last 2 games, he's allowed 8 goals combined. So
awesome.
It just hasn't been good enough. And as you said, Lepore, I think Leaf fans now are getting really frustrated because we went through this, with Jack Campbell, with Freddie Anderson. Like, when was the last time? Well, I shouldn't say when was the last time. It was Freddie Anderson, where we had a goalie who was available on essentially a night-to-night basis. It was Freddie Anderson who played 60-plus games, I believe, 3 years in a row.
Yeah, didn't he break the record for most shots against or something? Was that him?
It may have been him. I'd have to double check
Or
that.
are we
but
going
he
back?
was the last
Are we
guy.
going back? Are we going back? Is that like Bernier or something? I may have had a brain fart
potentially.
there. Yeah.
But Anderson is the last guy who's been available on a night-to-night basis in the goalie position. I can't think of another guy, and it's been increasingly frustrating. And now you were seeing it with Matt Murray. There's been more pressure put on Ilya Samsonov. He has not been great recently. I mean, his home record has been sparkling, but overall, he's kind of slowed down a bit. So it's concerning, man. The goaltending position is concerning, and people were worried about it, obviously, heading into the season. It's not the end of the world. As I said, 11th in the league in 5-on-5 save percentage. Although last week, Lepore, they were 6th in the league in 5-on-5 save percentage. So that has dipped.
When you allow 11 goals in 2 games, that's gonna kill you. So, and even last night, I mean, did Sammy have a chance on any of them? I feel like every single one picked the corner. Like he was challenging it, just respect to the shooter. And maybe I got to watch them again, and people may argue against my point, but
yeah, I think there was definitely a couple of goals last night he could have had, but I thought the Leafs were outplayed. But man, even going back to your point on the last podcast, and you made it again on this show, that the Leafs should look at trading Matt Murray. I mean, it's possible. It really is, because again, I don't think it's his skill level. It's not his talent. Like it's his ability to just stay healthy and be available to his team. That's the main issue right now. And if he's not going to be available, especially come playoff time, then I mean, what are we even doing here?
Yeah, it's ironic we're having this conversation the week Tom Brady retired again. Body of
second
health,
time. Is he really retired? I'm not quite sure. I can't trust Tom Brady as much as I love him, and I know you hate Tom Brady, but I
don't hate Brady. I think he's overrated, but I don't hate him.
We can do like a 3-hour podcast on why Michael Lepore thinks that Tom Brady is the most overrated quarterback in NFL history, but we will save that, Lepore.
You know what's funny?
Save that.
Again, getting personal. So a very good friend of mine is a huge Lakers fan, loves Kobe, hates LeBron naturally. And when LeBron came to the Lakers, it was the most awkward thing for him, because like he wants his team to win, but he fucking hates LeBron James. And this friend of mine is also a Patriots fan. And here I am, a 49ers fan. So we always joke, how hilarious would it be if I get that kick in the face, Tom Brady coming to the 49ers? And you ask whether or not he's really done. If the Niners came along and said, Tom,
I think he's coming back, man. That's a match.
You think he's coming back? That's awesome.
If Kyle Shanahan calls Tom Brady and says, man, I have you under center with this defense, with these weapons on offense, let's just play one season and let's win a Super Bowl. I think that's hard for Tom Brady to turn down. So I'm not closing the door yet. I want to believe him that he's officially retired, but I'm not 100% convinced based on his track record.
Are the Niners the only team?
The Niners are the top of my list. If there's one team I think he comes back to at this point, I originally thought it might have been Miami, but I think I have 49ers a peg above them.
Yeah. He comes home, all that shit, and he'd have to play for nothing. I mean, that would be the presentation. We're going to build the team around you because you're going to play for the league min, whatever. But anyways,
exactly.
Tom Brady, if only Matt Murray could be as healthy as Tom Brady. He needs to have more avocado ice cream and do that band stretching he always does. Someone send the TB12 book to Matt Murray's house. Maybe it'll save the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Oh, I love it. That's what we're going to title this cut down video. Matt Murray needs to be more like Tom Brady.
Yeah.
All right, Lepore, let's move on now to this Bruins game and just talk about the Bruins in general. This team is an absolute wagon. At the All-Star break, they are playing at a 133-point pace. I mean, they're still right there on pace potentially to set the record for the greatest regular season of all time. It's going to come down to the wire.
Mm-hmm.
But man, this team is just unbelievable. Your thoughts on the 5-2 loss, and then also, can anyone beat this Bruins team in a 7-game playoff series? Like, never mind the Leafs. Can anyone in the league beat this team in 7 games?
The take on Twitter last night watching the game, I saw a few comments saying there's no one who can beat this team 4-7. Just too deep, too balanced. They have goaltending. They're clearly well coached. And last night wasn't an example, but Bergeron actually talked about it after the game, saying that there's been a lot of tight games. There's been a lot of close games, and even said games we shouldn't have won, and they've won. So like the old saying, if they're a team that knows how to win, they find ways to win. So it's difficult. Watching them, and I've watched quite a bit of the Bruins last year, can the Leafs beat them? And I trashed the Leafs earlier on this show, saying I think they're pretenders as their lineup stands right now. If the Leafs can add to their top six and to their defensive group, the Bruins would still be favored. But I think the Leafs could beat them because at the end of the day, the Leafs have a lot of star power. And I would say this about different teams around the league. The Leafs have star power, so they would need certain guys to go off. I mean, we go back to the series against Montreal where Marner and Matthews ghosted. That happens, we're done. It won't even go 6 or 7. We're done. We need our best players to step up, light it up. Maybe Sammy steals a game or two. But if someone asks me, is it possible for the Leafs to beat Boston? Yeah, I mean, I think based on how the Leafs are built, to say that I don't think a team exists that you could say 100% is going to beat the Toronto Maple Leafs, as special as that team may be. But can anyone beat them? I mean, like beyond the Leafs, I got to say it, and everyone comment down below. I'm sure I'll get shit thrown at me for this one. If we'll say it goes the way it goes, Boston plays whatever wildcard team, they advance. Toronto plays Tampa. Let's say Tampa beats Toronto. I think I'd pick Tampa over Boston. And I maybe it's just confirmation because it's happened in the past, but I just think that the way the two teams line up, I would be more confident in Tampa. Like the things I mentioned. Okay, the best players have to be the best players, and hopefully Sammy can steal a game. Well, we know Vasi's going to steal a game or two, and we know that the Lightning big guy, or no one would bet Kucherov, Point, Stamkos. Those guys are just not going to show up. Hedman's not. No. This team's coming, and I often revert back to experience on this show. The Bruins will have home ice. The Lightning don't give a fuck. If there's a team that's ready to go into TD Gardens and not care and not be bothered by a hostile crowd, the environment, being on the road, the Lightning don't care. They're too experienced, too buttoned up. So I would pick the Lightning. I really would. After that, I don't think I would pick anyone. I don't think I would pick anyone to beat Boston. Maybe a healthy Colorado if that's the final.
Yeah, I was going to say that's the one team. Colorado at full health. You're not taking them over the Bruins?
Yeah, nobody else in the West. I think if Boston comes out of the East and they're playing anyone, if they're playing anyone besides Colorado, I think they got it. And even too, if things go the way they're quote unquote supposed to go, even Carolina. I mean, if they beat Toronto, beat Tampa, or sorry, if they beat whoever they beat, Tampa beats Toronto, and then they beat Tampa. I don't know if Carolina's going to do it. I mean, Brendan Moore's a good coach, but again, like head to head, top to bottom, like this Bruins team's so good. It's almost being forgotten about that Allmark is almost a slam dunk for the Vezina based on his numbers. So at what area would you be like, yeah, Carolina's better? Tough one, man. Tough one. And you give, again, home ice to the Bruins against a Carolina team that's not as experienced as that Lightning team. I'd have a hard time picking Carolina to beat them. But to me, the one is Tampa. I would bet Tampa beats the Bruins. I really would. I'm sure people would disagree with that, but I guess I have so much respect for that Tampa team and John Cooper and the experience and the talent on that team, the depth. They have everything, and they're going to add as well. They always do. They're going to go full fuck you mode. So can anyone beat them? Yeah, I think someone can beat them. Is it likely? I think it stops at Tampa. When you say like, I would put it at 50-50 or maybe even slight advantage to the team, not name the Boston Bruins. You?
All right. So first of all, can the Leafs beat them in a 7-game playoff series? Yes. I think the Leafs can beat any team in the NHL in a 7-game playoff series because I think they're that talented. But if the Leafs are going to stand pat with the roster they have right now, and if Boston is also going to stand pat, so not factoring in any trade line additions, the Bruins are obviously going to be favorites in a 7-game series. I don't know what their price is going to be. Like, take this, for example. So last night, the Bruins were on the road in Toronto. Now, Austin Matthews was out of the lineup, but Boston
I know where you're going with this. Yeah,
they were a minus 130 favorite on the road.
I saw that. Yeah.
Right? If Matthews is in the lineup, Boston is probably still the favorite, but maybe they're minus 120, minus 115. It's closer to a pick 'em.
Yeah.
When Boston plays at home, I mean, I've gone over this on pretty much every podcast the last like 5 shows. Like that team is ridiculous at home. Their record is 22-1-3 at TD Garden heading into the All-Star break. 22-1-3. Yeah. So right there, like, is anyone going to be able to beat them on home ice? I think that's maybe the bigger question, because yes, I think they can be clipped in a 7-game series, but you're going to have to win 1 or 2 games in TD Garden to get it done. And right now they have lost once in regulation in 26 games at TD Garden this season.
And even then, you can't expect you're going to win all 3 at home, right? Against a team like Boston. So you're probably going to have to win at least 2 on the road. And even to your point about the line, like, I was laughing because I knew it's where you were going to go with that. As bettors know, you always get shit value on the Leafs. So the fact they had the Bruins at -130, the real line was probably like -150 or -160, and it was pushing towards the Leafs because they know they're going to get action that way. So yeah, like that's very, very telling for sure.
And before everyone wants to shit on the Leafs for their performance last night in the 5-2 loss, and listen, you're entitled to do that because we've seen this story countless times. They turn the puck over. They lose races to the puck. They just get beat up and down the ice. Poor defensive play. Goalie not making saves. You can do all that. But also keep in mind that Auston Matthews was not playing. And that is extremely important. I mean, that's almost like a team losing its starting quarterback. Michael Lepore, San Francisco 49ers fan, a team that lost all of their quarterbacks this season.
Yeah, I got a phone call in the third quarter the other day.
So really, I mean, I don't know if it's exactly equivalent to that, but when Auston Matthews is out of the lineup, that just changes the entire dynamic of the Toronto Maple Leafs. So with a healthy Auston Matthews, I don't think that they lose 5-2. I mean, maybe they still lose the game, but it's not as lopsided. So I still think the Leafs can beat Boston. It's unlikely at this point. Now, I do agree with your Tampa take, because when you go down the line, you match up top offensive players, top defender, top goalie. I'm taking Vasilevsky over Allmark. As much as I like Charlie McAvoy, I'm taking Victor Hedman over McAvoy.
Good point.
And then up front, I think Tampa has more offensive firepower. As good as Bergeron is as a two-way player, as good as Marchand is, he's having a little bit of a down year compared to what he's done over the last 5 years. Pasternak is having a phenomenal season. From an offensive standpoint, I am still taking those Tampa guys. I'm taking Kucherov, Point, and Stamkos. I just am. Based on what they have done over the last few playoff runs, based on what they're doing this season, especially Kucherov, he's performing at a great clip this year. So I think that Tampa, they would be underdogs in a series against Boston, but I would probably bet on Tampa as well if it gets to that point in the second round where it's Bruins versus Lightning.
Yeah, I'm laying that bet for sure. And then going even deeper, you mentioned forward group, defensive group, goaltending. I'm not picking Jim Montgomery over John Cooper.
Yeah, that's another great point.
Like, no, I'm going to bet on what I've seen before.
John Cooper's the best coach in the NHL.
Ooh, there is a take. Yeah, there you go.
I think he's easily solidified himself as the best coach in the league, especially what that team has done, like I said, over the last 3 to 4 years. And even going back further than that, if you want to look at winning percentage since he became head coach of the Tampa Bay Lightning, I believe they have the number 1 winning percentage in the regular season, or even points percentage for that matter. They've made it to 4 Stanley Cups under John Cooper. Like, it's absurd, man. That dude, I'm telling you, he does not get enough respect for how great of a coach he is. And sure, you could say he's got all these great players and anyone could coach that team, but something has to be said for the way that you think about all the turnover that team has year to year with the bottom 6 and even in their defense score. Like this year, they lost Ryan McDonough, cap casualty, right? Andre Palat gone. And this team is chugging along right now, looking at points percentage in the NHL. Tampa 4th in the league. Boston number 1, Carolina number 2, Jersey number 3, Tampa number 4, and Leafs number 5.
And Tampa didn't have the greatest start.
No.
So I'd like to see their winning percentage or points percentage, I should say, based on whatever cutoff. And I've said before on the show, I often talk about how sometimes we don't realize how amazing or how historic things are when they're actually happening present day. The Tampa Bay Lightning are like one of the greatest hockey teams of all time. You said, Bruno, 4 Stanley Cup finals, 2 cups. This is the Cap era. How's that possible? like this type of consistency. And people would point to say the Penguins or the Blackhawks. The Penguins had some lean years. I mean, they were always making the playoffs, but people kind of thought the door was shut before they won those 2 cups on the latter half. Chicago won them more like in a tighter group, and look what's happened to them. Beyond impressive, man, what Tampa's done, and it's impossible to do that without an amazing coach.
Yeah, John Cooper, I said it right here. Let me know in the comments if you think I'm crazy. I think he's the best coach in the NHL, and
Boom.
Until someone else goes on a crazy run like that, bringing his team to 4 Stanley Cup finals in that short of a time in the Cap era, then I don't think there's an argument, quite frankly, for anybody else. All right, Lepore, we got to talk about Brad Marchand.
Do we?
And some of the comments that he made before the Bruins played the Leafs.
You are excited. I like to look at your face as you're prepping something up. You are excited for this one.
I am beyond excited. And let me go off for a second, okay? First of all, let me set the foundation for this conversation we're about to have. So before the Bruins played the Leafs, Brad Marchand went, I shouldn't say he went on a rant, but he was addressing a number of topics. He was talking about trash talking the Leafs and how there's really no one on the Leafs who enjoys trash talk, and that when Marner's on the ice, all he talks about is video games and his dog. And he said that Marner's skates are ugly. And listen, I respect the hell out of Brad Marchand because he provides so much personality to a sport and to a league that desperately needs it.
Yeah.
And I should also mention that later in that same conversation, he actually talked very highly about Mitch Marner and the Toronto Maple Leafs, and talked about how much he respects Mitch Marner's game, how Marner's an undersized guy like him, but that Marner's not afraid to go to the dirty areas, not afraid to go into the corners, not afraid to go to the front of the net. Like, Marchand respects the hell out of Mitch Marner. But here's where I gotta call out Brad Marchand, because he made a comment saying that he and his Boston Bruins teammates all took less money to win.
Yeah.
I could even read his exact quote.
Do it, Bruno.
Let me pull up this quote, okay? Brad Marchand said, according to Luke Fox from Sportsnet, guys have tried to take less to win because we know that it bleeds through the lineup. If you can have 6 guys that make lower salary other than 3, seemingly taking a direct shot at the Leafs, it's a lot harder to play against. And that's why we've been good for so long. But here's where I take exception to that. Because Brad Marchand, David Pastrnak, and Patrice Bergeron did not take less money to win. They all signed their long contract extensions for fair market value at the time they were signed. Brad Marchand, Exhibit A, okay? He was entering his age 28 season, coming off a career-high 61 points in September of 2016 when he signed his big extension for, let me pull it up exactly here, 8 years, $6.125 million AAV. At the time, that's what Brad Marchand was worth. He did not have the leverage to go into negotiations with Boston and ask for $8 or $9 million.
Yeah.
He was entering his age 28 season, okay? And his career high up to that point was 61 points. We're not talking about a superstar player. Now, since then, he's obviously greatly outperformed that contract, and it looks like a complete bargain, but he did not knowingly take less money to win championships. The same goes for David Pastrnak, who signed his contract coming off a 70-point season, great season, but he didn't have the leverage to ask for $8 or $9 million. And especially when he signed his contract, there was just a different landscape in 2017. He signed for market value, 6.66 AAV. Patrice Bergeron, same thing. He signed for 8 years, 6.875 AAV in 2013. Bergeron was entering his age 28 season at the time as a one-time 30-goal scorer, and he had only won 1 of his 5 Selke trophies when signing that contract. Since signing, he's won 4 of his 5 Selke trophies.
Wow.
And has actually become one of the best two-way players in the league. I'm not saying he wasn't a great two-way player, but at the time, he wasn't considered like a top 10 to 15 player in the world. So this idea that the Boston Bruins all took less money to win championships is a load of shit. What they did was sign for fair market value at the time, and now they've all outperformed their contracts, and now the Bruins have been lucky because they are all now on team-friendly deals. And I'll end on this. like Nathan MacKinnon. It would be like Nathan MacKinnon coming out and saying, we just won the Stanley Cup because all of us here in Colorado take less money. Nathan MacKinnon was coming off a 52-point season when he signed for 7 years and $6.3 million AAV. Now, Nathan MacKinnon never came out and said that he took less money, but that's how stupid this would be because he didn't take less money. That's what he was worth. And now he's a superstar. So don't backtrack and say, we all took less money when none of you fucking did that. End rant. I need to take a breath.
Maybe I should go for a bit. Well, my simple response, you hear it all the time, and naturally people are going to do it because even if it's indirectly, it takes shots at the Leafs. I never remember contracts being signed and people being like, oh my God, so-and-so took a discount. You never hear that. And if they do, it's a shade. Oh yeah, he maybe could have got more on the open market, but he took a little less. These guys aren't going to take less. It's a business. So I challenge people whenever this comes up, show me a Twitter rant or show me an article that was written about Brad Marchand's contract when he signed it. Will it state that he took a crazy hometown discount? No. One thing I will point to, and maybe this is what he should have taken a shot at with the Leafs, as far as their contracts go, is the term. And I've said before on this show that the biggest thing about those contracts that piss me off is that these guys didn't sign for the max term. Imagine we were sitting here, Bruno. Imagine with Austin Matthews at his current salary, and we would have had 4 more years left of it. If he signed for the full 8, we'd have next year. He signed a 5-year deal next year and 3 more. We'd be laughing. And then throw in, imagine COVID didn't happen and the cap kept going up. We'd be laughing. But we're in this situation because of the term. So if you want to take shots at the Leafs and their core for the deals they took, and by that I mean Nylander, Matthews, and Marner, go right ahead, because I've done that. So, and I was angry when that happened. But in terms of the value, these guys don't take a discount. If anything, a lot of these guys, there's even examples of guys in the NHL who people point to, oh, they took a discount. Like, I was here, Draisaitl. Oh, he took a team-friendly contract.
No, he didn't.
People were flipping the fuck out when Chiarelli gave him $8 million, I remember. They thought, oh, he's ruining the league, giving a guy like this. And now it looks amazing because of years later, right? So I think the focus, if there is a focus on shitting on the Leafs when it comes to the contracts, is the term. It's the term. But in terms of the salary, no one takes less. And like I said, if they do, it's a smidge just to stay home and not have to take their kids out of school and move their family. But it's a business, man. It's a business. And get ready for more of these takes and more of these stories, because we got Nylander and Matthews negotiating soon. And then it'll be Marner. And then it'll be Tavares. And off we go, right? It's going to be a stressful time for Leafs fans. But yeah, no, it's all trash. Guys don't take less money. And I would say that you put it in perspective, even from the fan side, let's say a guy signs for $6 million. Okay. Or say a guy signs for like $7 or $8 million, and a team friendly discount of 6 or 7 on an 8-year contract. You think a guy's going to throw away $16 million? $16 million. No,
you think
one's doing.
Brad Marchand went into negotiations and said, like, oh, you know what? I'm really a $9 million player coming off a career high 61 points, but I'm going to take 6.125 out of the goodness of my heart. If he was worth $9 million, guess what, everybody? He would have signed for $9 million or something in that range.
I always point to the agents in this case. I mean, even if the player feels that way, the agents, I'm sure, are going to try to talk him out of it. And one thing I've always assumed is more a part of the negotiation process than we think it is the union. I think the union's involved in negotiations more than we think it is. When a guy goes to the table, they're trying to get him as much money as possible, like whether it's a teachers union, a government union, anyone, the carpentry union, you're trying to get as much money as possible. So the union wants Austin Matthews to sign a $15 million deal. They want guys to get overpaid, right? So it's not a real thing. It's not a real thing, but we have seen in recent years the old man discounts. Like,
yeah,
Bergeron.
And that's what happened with Bergeron and Krejci. And I'm not talking about those two deals, or those guys coming back for one last run with the boys, signing these 1-year deals. Sure. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about those big extensions that those big 3 guys signed in 2017 for Pasternak, 2016 Marchand, 2013 Bergeron. Yeah. None of them took less money. They all took fair market value at the time, what they were worth. And if they outplay their contracts, which they all did, that's great for the team. That's great for the organization. But then don't backtrack and say that your team all took less money. Look at Charlie McAvoy, their number one defenseman. He just signed a long-term deal for $9.5 million. Yeah. That's not taking less money. He's worth that, but he didn't say, I'm worth 12 million and I'm taking 9.5. No, he's worth 9.5 and that's what he got.
Because I just love the Boston Bruins, right?
It's sickening, man. And again, you nailed it with your Leafs take and how you worked that in. A lot of people responded to my TikTok video being like, you're a salty Leafs fan and you're an idiot. The Leafs overpaid all their guys. I'm not even talking about the Leafs in this conversation. I'm not defending the Leafs for giving Mitch Marner $10.9 million or even signing John Tavares in free agency for $11 million, which honestly, that was his market value at the time. The Sharks were offering him like $13 million. I'm not saying that those weren't overpays. I'm not saying that even, maybe you could even argue they overpaid Austin Matthews a little bit. I don't think they did. I think he's completely worth the value of his contract. Like, I'm not defending the Leafs in any way. I'm just calling out Brad Marchand, who's trying to act like the entire band all took less money to win championships. And guess what? Since they all signed those long-term extensions, the Bruins haven't won anything.
That's right.
They haven't won a Stanley Cup.
That's right. Yeah.
So, and the last point I'll make here, Lepore, you want to look at a team that actually took a little bit of a pay cut to win? The one team I will point to is the Tampa Bay Lightning.
Yeah, maybe because of the tax. Maybe because of the tax thing, but either way, they took cuts. Yeah.
That is the one prime example of a team with its top end players when they were up for new contracts actually all took less than market value. Kucherov was worth more than 9.5 at the time. Even Braden Point.
I was confused when he signed that deal.
Yeah, Braden Point, who signed that bridge deal and then signed for 9.5. I would argue that he's worth more than that. And even Andrei Vasilevsky, the best goalie in the NHL, Carey Price, signed a deal for $10 million. Same with Bobrovsky. You're telling me Andrei Vasilevsky couldn't have asked for more than that? He took 9.5. Not a single player on that team makes more than 9.5. But the point I'm trying to make is when they signed those extensions, at that moment in time, they were all worth more on the market. Whereas those Bruins guys, I'm sorry, you go look at the comparables at the time, none of them were worth significantly more than what they signed for on the market. Maybe a little bit, maybe $500K to $1 million here or there, but not the significant raises that people think that like people saying Marchand could have got $9 million back in 2016. Are you on fucking drugs?
That would have been like more. That would have been like more than Crosby at the time or something.
Just outrageous. Anyway, I really had to get that off my chest because, like I said, a lot of the times I look at the comments on social media and there's a lot of trolls and a lot of just weird comments. And there's a lot of smart people too. I should say that. A lot of smart people. Some of the comments I see are just absolute fucking stupidity. Like, wake up and actually listen and give your take, back it up with evidence. Don't be hateful. Like, actually understand what the other person is saying. Learn how to comprehend certain things instead of just spewing off garbage that doesn't make sense. And you're backing up your takes with no evidence. Like, Jesus. Anyway, I've lost faith. Based on that last video I posted, I've actually lost faith in humanity to a certain degree. I really have.
Like I said, it's about fandom, but I'm actually kind of surprised it took you this long to lose faith in sports humanity, to be honest. Oh, well.
Oh, man. Anyway, Lepore, is there anything else you want to get off your chest before we wrap up this podcast?
I'm looking forward to the All-Star game. We got some cool jerseys. We got a couple. We got Mitchie Marner representing the Buds, which should be pretty cool. And I don't know how deep I'm going to watch it. Probably have it on in the background, but looking forward to kind of the home stretch, because after the All-Star break is when you're going to see, I think, some trades happen and more of those talks and the direction teams are going. And it's put up or shut up time for a lot of teams in the league too. Those bubble teams fighting for a playoff spot. So it should be good.
Yeah, it's going to be a great race to the finish in the Atlantic Division. I'm looking forward to seeing, I mean, at this point, pencil in the Bruins to the 1 spot. I think the big question now is, will the Leafs get home ice in the first round? Because the Lightning are ahead of them in points percentage. They have 4 games in hand. That's going to be the big race to watch down the stretch. But as you said, Lepore, we'll enjoy seeing the Leafs in Sunrise, Florida at the All-Star game. And hopefully they can regroup through the break, think about their plan of attack heading into the trade deadline, and get us something to be excited about.
I was going to say, give us something to talk about.
I know. For real, man. Across the whole NHL, for Christ's sake. Give us something to tie. It's the same boring thing, honestly, week after week. Like, nothing exciting is happening in this league, it seems, week to week.
I know. Yeah.
So,
how about the Canucks?
Oh, God. All right, Lepore, that's going to do it for episode 91, the John Tavares episode.
Shout out to
the
John
Gluttons For Punishment Podcast, or GFP, a Toronto Maple Leafs and NHL podcast hosted by Michael Lepore and Anthony Bruno. If you're a new listener or a longtime listener and you really enjoyed this episode or just enjoy our show in general, please consider giving us a 5-star rating and review on both Apple and Spotify. And if you're watching us on YouTube, we would appreciate it so much if you smash the like button, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment down below, and hit the notification bell so you know exactly when the GFP podcast is posting some new content. So for Michael Lepore, I'm Anthony Bruno. Enjoy the All-Star break. Go Leafs go, and we will see you in the next one.
Thanks, everyone.